Welcome to the Lit Chicks podcast. We are Mary Ellen Humphrey.
Hello.
I'm Susan Landrigan, and this is Shannon Reber. And we're coming to you from the Innovation Studio at Lakeshore Center for the Arts in Westfield, New York.
Indeed.
And today we are going to talk about, well, it's close to Mother's Day.
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk about moms a little bit.
Yeah, and wish everybody a happy Mother's Day. Coming up on Sunday.
Exactly.
It is something that is, not everybody wants to talk about mothers. There are good mothers. There are not so good mothers out there. Most of them are good, but
Well, I think we should focus on the positive mother
yes.
things.
Exactly.
And thinking about how we incorporate some of that in our writing. And
Yeah.
sometimes we don't even realize that those experiences are impacting what our characters do and,
Yeah.
and who we develop for characters and so forth. Yeah, so I discovered that after many years of not being a writer. I started writing. A lot of my stories centered around mothers and mother-daughter relationships
Okay.
and parents and child relationships. And I think that's not unusual when you're exploring and trying to figure out and understand things.
That's true, yeah.
But until somebody pointed it out to me, I didn't realize I was doing that.
Well, with mine, I write bad mothers. I almost never have a really good quality mother. I always write either abusive or neglectful or, something like that. But it's not because I feel that my mom was abusive or neglectful. It's just, I feel like it drives a story more to have a flawed foundation. And I feel like that actually makes a character stronger. So maybe it's that way in real life too. It's possible.
You know what? There are no perfect mothers out there.
Very true.
Everyone has flaws. I know I am a mother. I was not perfect. I did my best.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also you have to figure out the perspective of the child growing up and maybe the influence of friends, and they see something and comparing their
yes.
mother to somebody else.
And every kid
Yeah,
does that.
yeah.
Every kid does that. But Susan was voted the coolest mom by her daughter, not by your daughter, by your daughter's friends, right?
Yeah. And my daughter said, "Oh, no, Mom, I can't believe this. It's not true."
Well, that's not nice.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
You were the coolest mom, according to everyone else's kids.
Right. Yeah, your mother is never the coolest.
Exactly.
So, excuse me, some years ago, I'm sorry, I've got a thing here this morning, but some years ago, I, with some of my friends, got together and we decided on Mother's Day to celebrate by writing some stories and poems and whatnot in celebration of that special relationship between mothers and their daughters and mothers and their sons. And, well, I first did my daughter. She went to the Coast Guard Academy, and I dropped her off, and I'm driving home. It's about a 3-hour trip, and I'm thinking, if something happened to me while she's gone to college, what would I want her to know? What would be the things I'd like to say to her? And I think anybody can do this. You can take a journal or just a card or something and write down something you want your child to know later on.
Yeah.
When maybe you're not here. And so I think maybe when I'm gone, maybe my children and grandchildren will read some of my stuff and go, "Oh, look what Mom said."
Oh, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I did this one for my daughter, which was fun, and I had contributions from a number of writers. And then I got to thinking, well, I don't want to shortchange my son. I love my son equally. So I did one, Messages from Mothers to Sons. And I sent this to him. He was grown up and probably graduated from college by this time. And I didn't think much of it, but I sent it to him for his birthday or something. And he called me up and he said, "Mom, I got your book." Now, I don't know about other writers, but for most of us, our families don't really read our stuff.
Correct, yes.
I hate to tell you that they don't read our stuff.
It's true.
They're
But
busy.
He called me up and he said,
Let's say
their
that.
excuse.
I said, "Mom, I got your book." And he said, "Why did you send that to me?" And I said, "Why, you didn't like it?" He said, "I did, but it made me cry."
Oh.
So I did a little story. I think I have time to just read this short little story. It's called Last Times. Life is full of last times. The last time we go to school, the last time we lock the door to a home recently sold, the last time our children live at home, the last time we talk with a loved one who passes on. Last times. One last time stands out in my mind. It was the last time you, my son, needed mommy to comfort you. You were probably 9 or 10 years old, a big boy for your age. I worked at home, and you ran directly from the school bus into my office and jumped on my lap. You hugged me tightly, crying uncontrollably for several minutes.
Aww.
I remember thinking, how big you've grown, how likely this would be the last time you'd want to hug your mommy when something went wrong.
Aww.
I remember smiling, not concerned about what was the matter as much as touched that you felt safe enough to come to me for comfort.
Oh,
And I
that's
realized
so
that's what you
sweet.
wanted, comfort. So I hugged you back until your tears subsided. You sat back, wiped your face on your sleeve, and gave me a kiss.
Of course.
Thanks,
Well, it's a
Mom.
good thing he wiped his face first.
Thanks, Mom, you said in such a grown-up way.
Aww.
I sensed this would be the last time. And it was.
Aww, that's so
Yeah.
sweet.
So you can make your kids cry.
Yeah, exactly. You have one too, though, right? Oh, about your mom?
I have a book that I wrote about my mom, and it's my mom's biography. And the reason I wrote it, my mom and I weren't particularly close, but we got along. And and my granddaughter, when she was about my youngest granddaughter, when she was about 2 years old, we were living in Florida, and her parents would leave her with us, go off to Jamaica or Mexico, and come back and pick her up.
Okay.
So one of the things she liked to do is to go through our photo albums. And she'd like to pick up Mommy and anybody she could pick, she knew the names of.
Okay, yeah.
And of course there were several pictures of my mom, and she would just have this confused look on her face, like, I just don't know that one.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
then I decided to write her, I had a basis which was already written, and I expanded upon that, and I added all kinds of pictures.
That's amazing.
And then I really, even though she couldn't understand it when she was 2 years old,
Yeah.
she would understand it now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
all of my grandchildren were born after she passed.
Okay.
So maybe that gives them a better understanding of her.
That's amazing. That is absolutely fabulous. I love that.
I love the idea that today we have the ability and the means to do books for our families.
Yeah, it's true.
And we can make really nice quality books. I
Yeah.
didn't bring any today, but I did one last year for my maternal side of the family, the Garnett family. And I had stories of my grandparents, my grandmother. I was very close to my grandmother. She was more a mother to me than anybody.
Yeah.
And my grandfather, and then other cousins and whatnot sent me their stories. And we had some old photographs. And I discovered something that surprised me. I don't know why, but I was one of the older grandchildren. So the younger grandchildren got to do the things I did, but I didn't know that because I was gone by then. And so one of the things that my grandfather did for all of us is he let us use his riding lawnmower. Now this is
That's
back
cute.
in the 60s, right? And I remember nicking some of his new trees and my grandmother going, ah! But he let us all learn to do that. And it was a
that's so
highlight
cute.
to all of our
Yeah.
memories because we would mow the lawn and then he would take us to Dairy Queen and we'd get big soft serve ice cream.
That's so
Yeah,
cute.
and so to this day I have that wonderful memory, and I like soft serve ice cream. If I go out to an ice cream place, I want the soft serve vanilla.
Just because, that's
just because
lovely.
it brings back that wonderful memory. Yeah, so it's not just
Yeah.
moms and it's
Yeah,
grandparents as
I mean,
well.
she was
Yeah.
a mom to you. Your
She
grandma was a mom to
she
you.
really was. Yeah.
Exactly.
And did she get upset when you nicked the trees?
Yes, she did. My grandfather was like, "Oh, don't worry, Frances, it'll grow." But she was like, "Oh, watch out, you can hurt the tree," you know. So. As long as I didn't hit the house. It was
Yeah, that's a good thing. I was allowed to drive the riding lawnmower, but the blades were never allowed to be down because blind girls don't drive very
dear.
straight lines.
Yeah, you're
we
right.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was fun. Actually, I have thought recently about writing one about my mom. My mom passed away 2 years ago, and I I know she has one sibling left, and one full blood sibling. She has half brothers and sisters, but I keep thinking maybe I should talk to my aunt and we should write a story about my mom. And then I'm like, but I write fantasy, and I don't think my mom would want to be involved in one of my fantasy books.
Perhaps
I mean,
But you might need a brief respite from fantasy and just something. It's a labor of love.
yeah, exactly,
You do it
exactly.
If you feel the mood to do it.
Yeah.
You do it because it's something that will remain like a memorial.
Right, right.
And a memory of that person.
Yeah.
Before it's too late,
Exactly.
Yeah. I encourage people to do that, to write your family stories. And even if you don't put them in a book right away, just keep collecting them. Ask those people who are getting older, something like identifying photographs.
Oh,
I have lots of photographs from my grandmother that I have no clue who these people are. They're 150 years ago,
Ah, yes.
And she would have known. And so before it's too late, ask the question, who is this grandma? Who is this person? And then when you're ready
Yeah.
and the time comes, you can put together some pretty nice gifts.
Clearly,
Yeah.
clearly, Susan has it. You have it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really very nice.
In my daughter's book, I said, what would I want to say to her? What would you say to your daughter? She's a young woman. She's starting out in the world. She's in college. She's growing up. What would I want her to know? And when I thought about it, I came up with this. If there was one thing I could impart to you, the greatest value I could give you, it would be this. Trust your instinct.
Ah, yes.
And it was a lesson that took me many years to learn.
Yeah.
And many hard knocks. As a young woman, my own self-confidence was low, and I tended to look to others for answers.
Ah.
Often those answers were in my own heart, but I didn't have the faith to listen or the courage to trust. So if something doesn't feel right to you, don't hesitate. Trust your instinct. Whether it's a person, a situation, a decision you're contemplating, trust your instinct. And so even if you make the wrong decision, it's better if it's yours.
That's
and you
true.
will learn
That is
and add
very
that
true.
to your inner wisdom.
Yeah.
And of all the things I wanted to say, that was
Yeah.
the thing that struck me from my experience, that I wish I had trusted myself more as a
Yeah.
young person, and instead of looking outside for the answers.
That's a good piece of advice to give anyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And making mistakes helps us
That's
grow.
true. That is true. I'm not a mom, and I know that one. So
Decisions you make when you're young really can impact your life.
exactly,
In
it's true.
positive or not so positive
Yeah.
ways.
Right.
It's true.
And one of the last things I want to leave as a thought that really helped me a lot is you have two chances in life to, if you're lucky, to experience that parent-child relationship. In the first one, you're the child, and you don't have much control. But in the second one, you're the parent, and you can experience sometimes the things you wish you had as a child. You can experience with your own children, and therefore kind of heal some of
definitely.
those things that we tend to generationally pass along.
yeah.
We can put an X in that and go on in a different direction.
It's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we are near the end where we should do a word for the day.
I think we should. I think you're right.
I hope it's a really big word.
I hope it starts with a P.
Our word for the day is proliferate.
It does.
To increase quickly in number or amount.
I wish
So-
my stories would do that.
Shannon's too.
Not as quickly as they used to, but that's a fabulous word. Nice job. Be sure and use it throughout the day. At least in one sentence. You got to do this.
Our grass is proliferating.
Yeah, the dandelions have really proliferated. But they're very nice. I like them.
They're cute, yes.
Yeah, I want to dig one up and see if I can clean it and eat it.
Oh,
The roots are supposed to be very good
Yeah,
for
the
you.
whole plant
And
is
the leaves,
actually
too.
Yeah,
I've heard that, yes.
better than spinach. My father loved them, so he
They're,
learned to
they're
be.
demonized, but they shouldn't be. They're
It's true.
No, they really shouldn't. They're very, very good. But off point here.
Off point.
Let them proliferate to their heart's content.
Yes.
Well,
That's all for today. Thanks for spending time with us, and we'll see you again next week.
Have a good week, right?